Hi everyone, want to share today a lot of my failings, a lot of things I've done wrong over the last 12 months, and I think it's important that I share this with you guys. Now the reason I make these videos is because I want to use my experiences, the battle scars so to speak, that I've picked up from many years wasted gambling and with addiction, and I want to use my experiences and what I've learned from them and what I found works, what doesn't work, etc. when it comes to recovery. I want to use all of that to maybe help others from committing themselves to the same fate, from doing themselves the same damage and picking up the same proverbial scars. One thing I always say in so many of my videos, particularly when they are ones where I feel like I'm giving advice so to speak, is that I try and be sure that it never comes from the position of a high horse. I never want to feel like I've put myself on some sort of pedestal, like I am holier than thou, or so in some way superior because I have been through this and, dare I say, maybe come out to the other side. And I think complacency is really something to be desperately avoided in many instances. So because of that, I want to share my failings from the last 12 months, and I want to also explain why sharing these and why my experience of these is so related to my struggle with gambling, and what actually, looking back retrospectively over the past year or so, has taught me about the process of recovery and a more general approach to self-improvement. I'm starting to leave the same shameless self-promotion towards the end of the videos these days, but if you do want to support me, there'll be a link to the Patreon in the description below. Otherwise, just like, share, and I just appreciate everyone's support, really. Everyone who comes along for the ride and listens to me ramble, and I really do hope it helps in some capacity. If it does, then you know what to do. So, why do I want to share these? Like I say, I want to share these because I want to prove that whilst maybe I've made vast steps in one area of my life, that I'm still far from perfect. And I think it's important because, like I say, so many people that you see online, particularly here on YouTube, that give advice, particularly in the sort of self-improvement sphere, if you'll call it that, come across so highly polished, so almost, like I say, holier than thou. They seem like they've got it all together, almost a sort of preaching style of instruction and advice. Now, don't get me wrong, some of these people have fantastic ideas, and I listen to podcasts from the likes of Chris Williamson and people like that who come across in a very sort of polished, professional way. They're very successful, they're very attractive, they're very fit, healthy, and they seem to have everything together. I am far from that. I am a bloke who looks beyond his years. I am overweight, I am balding, although to be fair, I've been doing that since I was about 16, and I have my fair selection of vices and bad behaviours. And these are things, and this is where I'm going to come on to my failures, these are things that I plan to address. And indeed, when I turned 40, I started to address and have a certain level of success with. I'll speak tomorrow in a video, which I've already recorded, about plans, about aspirations, about things that you can foresee for your future when you're younger. And I talk about how gambling undermined those, but how that you can still get your life back on course, and you shouldn't allow these necessarily allow these failures to define you and to define your future. That's a video for tomorrow. But let's talk about this year. Let's talk about what's happened since I turned 40, what I planned, how much of that I've stuck to, what I've failed with, and what that's taught me. Now, a fair while ago, if you've been with the channel a while, you all know that I started a challenge to go 100 days without alcohol. Now, I can't remember the exact amount of days I got to, but it wasn't very much. It was more than I'd probably gone without alcohol for quite a substantial part of my adult life, but I failed. And I did explain that the reason I failed is I think because simply, unlike quitting gambling, it wasn't something that I felt I really needed, and it's something that I didn't actually really want enough to carry through. So I failed. I started going to the gym very regularly. I would say on many occasions it was every day of the week, but certainly it would have been 4 or 5 in most instances. And by doing that, I saw massive improvements. I was sleeping better. I weighed less. I lost a lot of the beer gut I'm carrying around. I was healthier. I was more productive. I had a better relationship with my wife because I was, sleeping better, snoring less, and was probably a lot more present mentally and physically for her. I wasted a lot less time and I got on well with other things, you know. If you were with the channel at that time, you'll probably have noticed that there was an influx of new videos, some of which I believe did come across a little bit high and mighty and a little bit sort of self-righteous, and actually I took that feedback on board. That wasn't the reason I gave up the non-drinking. I think the reason I gave up the non-drinking is because I didn't want us to keep doing it, you know. I was a bit bored of it. But yeah, the gym massively helped. It helped improve my fitness. I could physically see changes in myself and I could see changes in my productivity. So what happened? Well, I became ill. I developed quite a bad chest infection, which was diagnosed supposedly as pneumonia. Also had some other issues, some family problems and bits and pieces like that. Now, the reason I'm not going to go too much into that is because it doesn't matter. Because it doesn't matter who you are. You will experience unforeseen challenges in your life, be that ill health, be that things with family, you know, and things that are completely often out of your control. And it is how you deal with those things that define, you know, how they affect you in the long term. Obviously, whilst I was suffering with a severe chest infection, I couldn't work out. I couldn't go to the gym as much as I had been doing. And that was unavoidable. I literally wasn't physically capable of doing it. And actually, I ran the risk of doing myself harm, you know, in the process. What I could have done, however, is slowly eased my way back into it and picked it back up once I started to feel a recovery from the medical issues. But I didn't. Instead, what I did is I used it as an extended excuse to be lazy. I didn't go back to the gym probably for 3 or 4 months after I had almost fully recovered from this condition. I used the other challenges in my life, the other stresses, the other things that could potentially lead to psychological issues. And again, I use these as an excuse to drink too much, to continue with an increasingly poor diet, eating the wrong things, drinking too much, not getting the proper sleep, literally just generally not looking after myself. Now, I'm not saying that everyone should rush out and join a gym. I'm not saying that drinking a few pints or ordering a kebab on a Thursday night is necessarily, a bad thing and that we shouldn't do it, because I think ultimately if we strive for perfection, what we're going to do is we're going to fail because we're going to get miserable. But what happened is I didn't notice the effect that this was having until I was quite a long way down the line. In the same way that by joining the gym and going day after day after day, in the same way that cutting out and then eventually cutting down my alcohol consumption day after day after day, and all these other positive habits that I was trying to build into my daily life, I didn't notice them until I was quite a long way into them. And in the same way, I haven't noticed how much I failed until I look back over the last, I would say, 12 months, and seen just how much I've dropped off in terms of progress, in terms of productivity. Again, you'll see it on the channel. Yes, I have been busy, but I feel a lot of that is making excuses because I've fallen into bad habits. So what has this taught me about addiction and recovery? Well, it's taught me that it's not an overnight process. It's only looking back once I've been going to the gym for 6 months that I noticed the progress. But it's also only after sort of 6 months of slipping and not continuing on with those positive habits that I realised just how much of a step back I've actually taken in terms of my physical health, my physical appearance, and everything else that comes along with that. Quitting gambling is not a big decision. It's the biggest decision you'll probably make in terms of improving your life. However, don't expect to make the decision and suddenly see some sort of impact, some sort of effect. In fact, looking for some sort of immediate feedback from doing that is often detrimental to your recovery as a whole. We've seen it so many times, people who go onto social media and suddenly exclaim that they're giving up alcohol, or they're quitting smoking, or they've joined a gym, or they're doing whatever. And somehow they make this big announcement about this new habit that they haven't even yet started. They get the accolades, they get the positive feedback, the affirmation from their peers, which actually harms the consistency with which they keep up these new habits. Saying, I'm going to quit gambling, my life is going to be better, does nothing. Doing it one step at a time, day after day after day, in such a respect that you don't even notice the improvements. It's climbing a mountain. You don't climb a mountain in a single leap. And you only notice you're actually climbing the mountain after you've taken step after step after step. No one step seems significant. In the same way that no one day of quitting a bad habit or starting a good one will feel significant. And trying to put significance in the simple decision to change your habits will literally be detrimental to your perseverance with that. It's only by taking that step after step after step and looking back you realise how far up that mountain you've gone. Or, in my instances, in my failures of the last few months, where I have, neglected the positive habits, I realise how much I've slipped back down the mountain and looking back up as to where I was, and worse still, looking up as to where I could have been had I maintained them. Yes, things will get in the way, but what I did is I took the setbacks, I took the health issues, the family problems, and anything else that I could hold on to as an excuse to continue a path of least resistance, a lazy lifestyle, self-indulgence, overdoing the bad habits and not consistently pursuing the positive ones. It's easy. Doing hard things is sometimes the last thing on our mind when we've got other things going on. But often it's only by persevering with the positives that we can offset the past damage we've done with the negatives. Like I say, I'm sharing this because I've failed and I want to motivate myself to get better. I've started going back to the gym. I'm going to start trying to eat more healthily. I didn't have a drink yesterday. All these sorts of things. Okay, the tiny steps, single step back up a mountain, unnoticeable and not worthy of mention. But if I can continue to do that, and I cannot self-aggrandize, and I cannot look for affirmation in making those simple changes, each day at a time, then I can hopefully, in a similar amount of months' time, look back where I am now and see just how much higher I've climbed the mountain. If you are struggling with addiction, if you want to make a change, if you want to quit gambling, then brilliant. It's the best thing you'll ever do. But treat it like a single step up a mountain at a time. Don't make grand affirmations. Don't, expect any benefits straight away, because the chances are you'll probably actually struggle a bit more in the first couple of weeks, okay? But take step after step after step, knowing that a future version of yourself in weeks, months and years' time can look back down the mountain and just see how much higher you are. And then that will provide further motivation to keep yourself going. Don't wait for motivation to strike to act. Act, and then use that and use the progress that you observe as motivation to just keep pushing on. Like I say, I am far, far, far from perfect, and I am not in any way, in any position to tell you how to live your life. All I can do is share my experiences, tell you what's worked for me, and this, I hope, keeps you motivated to pursue better and better things for yourself, better habits, more of the good and less of the bad. Stay safe, stay sane. If you want to support the channel, Patreon link in the description below. Thanks to everyone, and take care, everyone. All the best.